We burning this temple next, boss?
No, leave it. Go on to the next one.
But if there's any offerings, we could give them to Lord Juzo.
Enough! We don't take from Buddha. How many times do I have to tell you before it sinks into your thick skull?
Please, don't get angry at me, boss. I'm sorry my skull's so thick.
In 2019, Japanese developer From Software released their popular video game, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. The game's success is undeniable, as 3.8 million copies were sold by August and it received awards such as the 2019 Game Awards Game of the Year and Best Action and Adventure Game. Sekiro is a massive commercial success, and it continues to be a top seller on the digital game purchasing site Steam. Undoubtedly, much of that success is due to the game's brilliant fusion between creative original design and Japanese lore and history. By merging real and fantasy, the developers craft an intricate, interesting world full of Easter eggs from Japanese religion. Sekiro takes place in the Sengoku period, or the Age of the Warring States under the Ashikaga regime. Religion during this time infused warrior traditions, Chinese culture, and Zen elements. Rampant disorder plagued the country as local villages adopted self-rule and artisans and merchants organized into guilds. Also, even though it is not referenced in the game, this was also the time when Roman Catholic missionaries were spreading their message in Japan. In a quote from Joseph Kitagawa and Gary Ebersole, throughout the Ashikaga period, established institutions of older Buddhist schools and Shinto remained both politically and economically powerful. However, the new religious groups that had begun to attract the lower strata of society during the Kamakura period continued to expand their influence, often competing among themselves. Some of these new religious groups staged a series of armed rebellions, such as Hoki-Iki, uprisings of Nichiren followers, and Iko-Iki, uprisings of the true Pure Land followers, to defend themselves against each other or against oppressive officialdoms." End quote. So it was a time of great conflict, and conflict is evident throughout the game. One of the first references to Japanese religion the player encounters is through the sculptor's idol. They serve as checkpoints in the game where the player can rest or respawn if they fall in combat. Interestingly, the Japanese terminology translates to demonic Buddha. These sculptor's idols are six-armed, kneeling figures, and they were created by an in-game character called the Sculptor. When describing his creations, the sculptor says they are Buddhas that are an incarnation of wrath. In reality, these sculptures relate to the Asura, which has 6 arms and 3 heads and is a being inherited from Hinduism. From Walter Stevens' Demons: An Overview, he says, "The Asura is a jealous or hostile god or demon, while the Preta is a ghost condemned to constant hunger. They are two of the unhappy destinies to which persons who have lived badly can be reborn in their world of sense experience." So, the sculptor's idols are adaptations of the Asura, and as places where the player respawns and comes back to life, they are indicative of the true purpose of the Asura and Buddhist teachings. When the player's character dies in-game, he is reborn at one of the statues. The developers of Sekiro look to real-life lore as influence for their epic in-game lore because sometimes real life is just as astonishing as the wildest stories creative minds can muster. The in-game warrior monks were likely inspired by the Buddhist monks who practice Soku Shimbutsu. The goal for these monks is to essentially mummify themselves alive through a long and strenuous process showing extreme devotion. According to Paul Williams, a connection no doubt exists. Japanese self-mummified monks, who usually belong to the Uono sect of Shukuendo, took their inspiration from Kukai, who is said never die but remains in perpetual samadhi. The term Soku Shimbutsu literally means to become a Buddha in this very body. During this time, the monks partake in a 3,000-day training period while maintaining a diet called tree eating. In this diet, they only eat tree products like berries, bark, nuts, and pine needles, while also reducing the amount of tree items eaten over time. In short, they slowly starve themselves over a 3,000-day period of unwavering dedication. In King Jeremiah's book about these monks and their practice, he says, "Before dying, the monk seeks out a suitable place for his interment and then buries himself alive in an underground chamber. A bamboo breathing tube provides oxygen, and he sits in a meditative posture, in complete darkness, chanting sutra and ringing a bell until his death. After 3 years sealed in the tomb, it is opened to analyze the extent of mummification. If the mummification was successful, then that monk is said to have reached a high spiritual attainment, where he is then enshrined to be worshipped in a temple. In the video game story, these monks add yet more depth to an intricate universe. The fact that these warrior monks were inspired by real-life mummy monks only serves to pique players' interest in both the game and actual Japanese tradition. Also in the game, we see references to Jizo statues wearing red bibs. These small statues are based on the Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha, translated to Earthwound. He swore not to reach Buddhahood until all hells were emptied, so he is known as the Bodhisattva of the Hell Beings. A reference to him in Sekiro therefore relates to the game's usage of monsters, adding a connection to Buddhism. Conversely, Ksitigarbha is also the guardian of all children, including deceased children and aborted fetuses. For this reason, the popularity of Jizo statues is spreading to the West, where distraught parents find comfort in them while mourning a child. An article by Independent on the subject states that it is believed that the babies did not have the chance to build up good karma on Earth, so Jizo statues helped to smuggle the children into the afterlife on the sleeves of his robe. The small statues serve as a reminder of a lost young one, while also soothing the pain of loss. This example directly shows the bridge of culture Sekiro is taking part in. Japanese culture, especially religious culture, is expanding globally as more people find it useful in their daily lives. Interest in Japanese culture is always expanding beyond Japan itself. Western consumers can't get enough of it. Sekiro is just another part of this expansion. Japanese popular culture is combining with American culture, where more and more Westerners experience some form of Japanese culture in their everyday lives. Simply logging onto Netflix can lead you on a path to countless hours of anime, and browsing Steam for video games will lead to various Japanese culture-based video games. Of those video games, Sekiro is perhaps one of the best in terms of bringing Japanese religion specifically to American and Western audience, whether they realize it or not. But why such a fascination with Japanese religion and culture? Perhaps the religions of the West leave little to the imagination, where religion from Japan delves into a sort of mystical unknown, of which many Westerners, including myself, are not taught in primary school. Also, I wonder if the relative acceptance of religions amongst modern Japanese people is an appealing factor as well. A story inspired by Japanese Buddhist traditions steps on a few toes, if any. However, could the same be said about a similar approach to Christianity? According to Elisabetta's Porcu's article on pop religion in Japan, Japanese Buddhist monks are taking advantage of commercialization to ensure the longevity of their religion. She notes the use of Hello Kitty among Zen and Shin Buddhists, and she relates Hello Kitty as an example of Japan's global influence and power. The little cat is everywhere, and it's extremely easily recognizable. Sekiro is in a similar way, is also an example of Japan's global influence through its popularity. Interestingly, commercialization of religion through examples like Hello Kitty and Sekiro is how these religions continue to exist. While traditional use and teaching fail to bring in younger generations, adaptations through commercialization appeal to the youth, who are more interested in the culture and the interesting stories rather than the practice itself.